What's up, everyone? Welcome to Star Wars Explained. Today we're going to talk about General Veers, and it just felt wrong to talk about the good general without Veers Watch himself. How's it going?
I am doing wonderful, thank you.
So I wanted to talk to you actually specifically about, from a certain point of view, The Empire Strikes Back. You can probably guess which story.
Yeah, I have a hunch.
We talked at Celebration, was it Chicago?
Chicago,
Last
yep.
time. We basically did a video on the floor of just, why General Veers
Yep.
is the best, why you like him so much. And I specifically brought up the fact that the reference book on the front lines seemed to suggest that General Veers would perish or had
Yes.
perished in the Battle of Hoth. And you were holding out hope.
It was touch and go for a second there. For a very long second.
I remember you saying that you were holding out hope, and I was just like, okay, man, I don't think that's going to happen. And then I was reading the Veers story, and from a certain point of view, and I got so excited for you for so many reasons. So let's just talk about the Trueest Duty for a second. Did you like the story by Christy Golden?
I really did. It's because it's funny because Veers was a very much a blank slate going into the story. And so I thought the angle she went with him being not necessarily a fanboy of Vader, but that immense respect he had for him, it felt like a nice counterpoint to all these other officers you get who are just like terrified of him or XYZ. So I thought that was great. Then the actual plot events of the story I quite liked. The chance for him to be surviving at the end, obviously I was a big fan. And then obviously, yeah, there's a few other elements that for me personally, I quite enjoy in a selfish way.
Yeah, let's talk about the character of Lastok.
Yes,
I kind of
TK7834, right?
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
And I say that because I have it written down right here. But walk me through reading that story and when you hit that name, what went through your head?
So I kind of knew going in that something was happening that would involve me. Um, so a few Comic Cons ago, I like half jokingly suggested to Tom, "Hey, if you ever do from a certain point of view, Empire Strikes Back, you should write me in there." And he's just like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." And so then, right before people had started getting the review copies in, and I was buying at retail, so I hadn't read it yet. Um, and so it was actually one of your live streams when you were building the AT-AT. I hopped on, um, and I saw, Tom was also in the chat, Tom from Del Rey. And he was just like, all right, here's a trivia question in the chat. What are the names and TK numbers of Veers's AT-AT pilot and gunner? And I'm just like, what you getting at there, Tom? You hinting at something? And so then the next day, I told a few of my friends. The next day, I had a buddy who works in Barnes and Noble. They got their copies of the books in, and he immediately went to the back room and read just the Veers story. And he messages me like saying like, I don't know how this is anything other than an unqualified triumph for Veers Watch. This is phenomenal. You're gonna love it. I'm just like, okay. So then, yeah, finally sitting down and reading it, and finally hitting Last Stock. It was great. It was really nice. It was such a very kind thing that Tom and Christy did to have that in there, and I really can't appreciate it enough.
So that there wasn't any question. You hit that name and you were like, yeah,
I'm like, yeah, here it is. There we go. That's it. Um, yeah, I was sure enough, and Tom, I think, actually reached out to me beforehand, saying like looking forward to getting your thoughts on this, and so I mean, I was I didn't want to be too presumptuous, but
right.
at that point, I'm like, no, this is for me. This is your boy.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Veers Watch real name, Last Talk is a Tuckerization of your name.
Yes, Costal. Yep.
Yeah, wasn't trying to give out your personal information to.
I mean, my personal account does claim creator of Veers Watch. Not that I publicize it all that much. It's
Yeah.
out there.
Uh, but then beyond the name, because I was already excited for that as I was reading the story, but then now walk me through reading like the last few paragraphs where yeah, the snowspeeder, hobby snowspeeder does hit
Right.
Blizzard 1. It goes down. Uh, you kind of cut to black for a second, but then it fades back in. Walk me through how you felt about those final bits of the story.
Yeah. So, the one thing I spoiled before, because my buddy was dying to spill the beans. I'm like, don't tell me the secret. The one thing I did spoil was he said Veers survived, because I could not bear knowing, if I was reading the book, you know, possibly showing up just to have him die at the end. Um, so I knew he lived, but then to have Lastok be the one to kind of like find Veers and pull him from the brink of death, um, it was a very good role for a character named after me to fill. I thought it seemed metaphorically fitting.
Yes, I mean I'm going to title this video "The Man Who Saved General Veers" because I was jumping up and down reading that, just thinking of like, oh my god, yeah, metaphorically, George has saved Veers, but then in universe, he also did it. He literally pulled him from the wreckage.
I was thinking going, yeah, I'm like, am I going to like shove him out of the way of the snow speeder or something? I was thinking the way my buddy was talking, I thought maybe that's the sort of thing I'd wind up doing. But it was really, I'm like, at this point, I'm like, need to get some art commissioned of this, want to make some of that. It was so cool. I really can't get over it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you truly have changed Star Wars in a small way, but like I think that that story, or at least elements of it, were written specifically for you. So how does that feel? I don't think a lot of fans can say that.
Yeah, it's pretty special. And because I I haven't listened to all the audio commentaries that they've done for From a Certain Point of View Strikes Back, but I did of course listen to the Veers one, and they talk, without mentioning Veers Watch specifically. They're like, we knew we had a lot of people looking forward to the Veers story. Um, so just knowing that, like, I was able to generate that excitement for a story for what's really a pretty minor character in, even within From a Certain Point of View, he's not the most important character in there. So to generate that excitement just for the story existing was great. And then to actually like have that like somewhat demonstrable effect on canon is really something special. I really, it has made this whole endeavor worthwhile if it wasn't before.
I would agree. Um, what do you hope to see from Veers in the future now? Because he's alive. He can come back, and obviously he can be in, flashbacks or prequel stories as well. But now he can pop up after The Empire Strikes Back. So what are you
Yeah.
hoping to see?
So I don't think this is likely. Within a day of From a Certain Point of View, Empire Strikes Back coming out, I was like, how do we get him into From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi?
Hmm.
And I had a few angles that I liked in my head. Um, Something about him, because Julian, supposedly was going to be in Return of the Jedi, commanding the Endor garrison, and then scheduling didn't work out and he couldn't be it. So I'm like, well, you could do something meta with that, being like, oh, he was due to take over and then he hadn't finished recovering and he shows up a day late or something. Um, the main story thread I would love to see explored at this point is, now that we have him showing this, it's, the mention of Vader is what pulls him back from the brink, thinking, I can't fail Vader. That's my truest duty. I got to, fight on for him. So I really want to hear his reaction to like learning that Vader killed the Emperor.
Oh,
I think that would be fascinating. Because for a while in my head, when he wasn't showing up after Return of the Jedi, before we knew, well, that's probably because he was supposed to die. I was just like, well, is he not joining the First Order? What's the deal? And so then I got in my head, I'm like, well, maybe he would join the First Order. Maybe he doesn't like the First Order. Maybe he, served with the Republic, carried forward to the Empire, and then maybe, the Empire loses, that's that, and he, retires or goes to, New Republic jail. And I thought, well, maybe eventually he comes around and the First Order tries to overthrow the galaxy. He doesn't like that. He joins the Resistance. Which, I think is not necessarily out of the cards, depending on how he reacts to, hearing about Vader. I don't know if it's necessarily likely, but it seems like the sort of thing that could still theoretically happen. Um, he's not like a cold-hearted monster in the story, which I liked. He cares for the men under his command. He actually notes, when an AT-AT blows up, he's like, that could be 40 good men, dead for what? So I really like that element of it. So I really like the storytelling avenues that this book opened. I keep glancing because I have the book right here. I'm looking at. So I really like what we could be getting after this. Now that we actually have some characterization for him, I think they could take it in some really interesting ways.
I think that's a great idea. Just wanting to see his reaction to Vader after Jedi. I think there's probably potential for him in between Empire and Jedi. We're doing that Darth Vader comic right now, so who knows how long it's going to take him to recover from the crash.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is the one thing that all the reference books were talking about in regards to his characterization that they didn't really touch on here was they're like, oh, Veers is a family man. And so I'm almost like, I wonder if maybe he just retired after Empire. If the injuries were bad enough, that could be an out theoretically, maybe if he wants to spend time with it. I don't know. So just getting into that a little more in any future books would also be fun, I think.
Do you have any thoughts on where Lastok goes from here?
That's a good question. Maybe he sticks with Veers during the recuperation period. Maybe he becomes Veers's aide de camp or something like that. Veers handpicked him, so so it wouldn't shock me if Veers handpicked him to continue to stand by. Or maybe he just sticks around and keeps fighting on. Maybe he goes down with the Executor. Who knows? But either way, he's certainly played his part, and he's done it well.
This just kind of popped into my head. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the book specifies whether or not Lastok is the pilot or the gunner.
So it doesn't specifically, but the Wikipedia, I think, treats it as he's the pilot.
Okay. I was going to ask what would you have preferred?
I'm okay with pilot, I think. Yeah. So here's the line. 40 armed and armored troops were ensconced within the transport's belly and stationed along with Veers in the front-facing command center were TK 5187 and TK 7834, the finest gunner and pilot Veers could find. Which, it's not explicit, but reads, sure. Molly is the gunner and you're the pilot. So that's I'm assuming pilot.
Okay.
Which I think would mean I don't get a speaking line in the movie. But that's okay.
You still save Veers from wreckage, and yeah, for people who I wasn't really going to bring it up, but yes, the TK numbers. The TK numbers are based off of my birthday and Molly's birthday. 7834 is my birthday jumbled up, but Tom again messaged us and a while ago was like, "Hey, we have some TK numbers we need filled. If you have any digits you want to throw my way." I did not know it was going to be for the Veers story. I just assumed it would be randomly throughout, but yeah, I guess kind of we are now the same person, but
yeah,
I'll take like 5% ownership of that. I give Lastok to you. But what plans do you have now for the future of your Veers fandom? Because since you bring it up, you were talking about how we could all do like a group cosplay together.
Could I certainly would be. I've started I haven't really looked into full costumes. I remembered like a while ago, Mark Echo did a like AT-AT driver like full like zip hoodie that I kind of looked into, and I'm like, this is expensive and not very cool looking. I did not do that. I want to at some point now do an AT-AT pilot costume. That's still probably a ways off. Um, in the shorter term, I've started looking into maybe doing a custom action figure of myself,
Oh, I like that.
which certainly not vain or anything. I'm seeing if I have my AT-AT pilot figure handy, and I don't think I do. Which is no, I don't. That's okay. Um, but so I'm in a customs group on Facebook, and someone just the other day was like, "Hey, who knows anyone to do a 3D, head sculpts for 3D printers?" And someone recommended someone. I'm like, I have a 3D printer I can use. I have a buddy who paints miniatures. I'm set.
That's a great idea. I think you should absolutely do that. And if you ever do the full cosplay, I like the idea of you running around at Celebration and just like finding any Veers cosplayers and like just keeping them safe. But
The nice thing is I have my big old head, which I'm sure the helmet would be miserable, but I'm like the one Imperial trooper who can like now canonically take off his helmet and get away with it.
yeah.
So there we go.
uh, well, thank you so much for hanging out and talking. This is exactly, I just wanted to get your thoughts and feelings on Veers' survival, the fact that you literally and metaphorically saved him in and out of universe. But where can people find you and follow you online?
Just go on to Twitter at Veers Watch, and what I'm sure is a shocking twist. That's where all the good stuff is.
All the good stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, for people who don't know, what is that Twitter handle about?
So Veers Watch started off as purely tracking the appearances or lack thereof of General Veers in any Star Wars media. It's now moved into some additional Veers themed shit posting. But that's really the thrust of it, is just looking for and celebrating General Veers. I guess I should also mention Veers Watch Weekly, which is that in podcast form.
There you go.
Yeah, 2 minutes a week. It's a blast. Most of it's theme song. That's okay.
And where can people find that?
That's on iTunes and maybe elsewhere. I host it on veerswatch.com. But yeah, iTunes Veers Watch Weekly would be the podcast.
Okay, great. Well, everyone check out Veers Watch on Twitter and on iTunes. Genuinely, it is one of my favorite follows on Twitter. It always makes me laugh just to hear like Star Wars issue number 8. No Veers.
See, that's good. Now I can just splice you into the podcast. You have just guessed it
Great.
on Veers Watch Weekly. Thank you.
Yeah. Veers Watch, my favorite podcast in the Citadel. Well, thank you all so much for watching and celebrating Veers with us today. Like, subscribe, and all that if you haven't already. And may the Force be with you.